seeks assistance, he seeks help from the financial institutions or the various government schemes and various such agencies. He goes forward, he prepares business plan, maybe either under Make in India scheme or in Startup India program. He selects that, he selects any of these, and then he goes ahead with the venture, with his entrepreneurial venture, whatever innovative idea he had in his mind. So these strategies which we have seen, uh, like we had seen opportunity analysis, SWOT analysis, they give a broad spectrum, or they give, or they are very much helpful for a longer period of time. Now, it doesn't mean that once I start, meaning I have achieved everything. When we start, or when we actually end up setting up our organization, meaning we are beginning a new inning, in the entrepreneur's life, is what it is said. So when I have to begin the second inning, I need to strategize myself. I need to strategize my business. I need to understand what is happening around. I need to understand what my weaknesses, what my strengths are, from whom I can face threats. So such tools, such strategic management tools help us in taking better decisions. So that is the background of these things. We, as I said, we have seen SWOT analysis. We had also seen the opportunity analysis. So these analysis help us identify. Can you see the screen, guys? All right. Yeah. Okay. So these tools basically help us in taking the better decisions, better strategic decisions. Very important among these tools is this Porter's five forces model. I guess we had an introduction about this model. Let us just brush it up quickly. So basically, this particular model given by uh, Harvard Business School professor Michael Porter, this model helps us identify and analyze the five forces, five competitive forces that shape every industry. You name the industry and you will find that these forces are present. So this model helps us identify such forces. Identifying forces, meaning we are finding out actually where my strengths and weaknesses are in terms of these forces. When I know that how much is the level of competition, I can strategize better by finding out or by focusing on my opportunities, from whom I can face threats. So these forces uh, identify and analyze this model identifies and analyzes the forces that shape every industry, and they also, this particular model also helps determine an industry's weakness and strength. As an industry, where the strength of the industry is, for example, if we take current scenario, probably the pharma industry is such that it is growing, it is booming, though the industry was doing well because it is related to humans. So pharma food industry, if we say, they are always booming, or they are always growing, we can say. But then in such situation, pharma companies, they just minted the money like anything. You just the medicines are there, the masks are there, the sanitizers are there, the products which these companies are manufacturing are in huge demand. So when we study these industry with the help of such tools, it tells us where the industry's weakness and industry's strengths are. It is frequently used, the model is frequently used to identify the industry structure to determine our corporate strategy. So I understand the industry which I belong to, how it is. So this becomes easy for me to design my own strategy. Now, when we say that strategy, meaning we are focusing on something. Uh, if we take example of cricket or any sport, badminton or cricket, let it be an individually played game or a team game, we understand the industry, or we understand the team here. So this helps us formulating our own strategies, where each and every uh, competitors strengths are, where each and every player of the opposition's team, how they are performing, how they are behaving. Accordingly, I can decide my own corporate strategy. If you can remember the movie called Dangal, the father over there tells his daughter that how you should analyze each and every player before you are deciding about your own game for your tomorrow's match. So if you understand your competitor well, you can find out his own strengths and weaknesses, and accordingly, it becomes easy for you to strategize. This particular model can be applied to any segment of the economy to understand the level of competition within the industry and enhance the company's long-term profitability. So this is how the model looks like. So these are forces: threats of new entrant, bargaining power of supplier, bargaining power of buyers, then threats of substitutes and degree of rivalry. Rivalry कितनी है दोनों में, दुश्मनी कितनी है between the companies. So based on that degree, even we can understand or we can strategize ourselves. So let us study these 5 forces one by one, beginning with competition in the industry. The first of 5 forces refers to the number of competitors and their ability to undercut the company. So first and important force out of these 5 is understanding the level of competition. The large the number of competitors along with the number of equivalent products and services they offer, lesser the power of company. You are an app-based company who deals with food delivery. And there are, when I go to Play Store, I can see there are some 15 to 20 different apps. Imaginary example we are just discussing. On App Store, I can see that there are 15 to 20 different apps which are dealing with food delivery. So I can see if tomorrow I develop an app, I can see that there are large number of competitors. Already there are 15 to 20 apps which are there in the market, which are being used. What is the percentage of each and every app? That I am not taking into consideration here in the beginning. I can see that already in the market, there are 15 to 20 different applications. So these are all my competitors, along with the number of equivalent products and services they offer. They all deal with the food delivery. They all offer me the discount. They all come up with various promotional offers. They all are run through mobile application. Some are also available over desktop or laptop version. So more or less I can see that everyone everyone is like what I am going to offer. Lesser the power of company, so I as a company will have lesser power here, because already the market has seen, or market may already there are number of such applications present. Suppliers and buyers seek out a company's competition if they are able to offer a better deal or lower prices. They go for companies competition. The suppliers and buyers, they probably prefer such companies if they are able to offer better deal or lower prices. So I as an company, or I as an app based food delivery person, if I can offer better deals to my suppliers and buyers, then only they can think of choosing me. Because already as suppliers and buyers, or the consumers we can see here, have got lots of options. So why will they choose you? Why will they choose me as the service provider? Only if I can offer them better deal, or I can come up with some lower prices. Conversely, when competitive rivalry is low, company has greater power to charge higher prices and set the terms of deals to achieve higher sales and profits. Reverse is the scenario when I have lesser number of competitors. Suppose I deal with consumer goods, TV, fridge, washing machine, like that, white goods, and I am the one who has got or I am the one who can sell over website, sell my goods over website. जैसे कि if we take the example of MI, suppose now the MI strategy is different, but I can say 2 years or 3 years back, the latest note versions of MIs were only used to get sold through the MI ka jo store pe, that they used to come up with that 1 hour ka thing. Only that time you used to get the updated say updated note mobiles. Moreover, the MI TV or the MI products which were being sold through their exclusive outlets, since the products were in so much demand, uh, they never thought of having this EMI option for the products. The prices of the MI TV, the smart TV which MI used to sell, it was actually quite lesser than the market. If the Samsung TV, let's say 50 or 60 inches, for example, is available at 40 45 ka range, 45K ka range, the same MI TV was available at 25 or 30. So it was quite below the market price. Moreover, the name was there. So, but then MI never had this option of making the goods available at EMI. This is the scenario. So here what is being observed? The rivalry is low. It was only MI who was ruling that time. The note uh, model of mobile or the smartphone was quite in thing. It was a tough fight. It was, we can say, the Samsung was already was in decline phase. Now it has revamped. We are discussing the case of, let's say, 2 to 3 years back. So Samsung was in decline mode. There was no other player in the market who was fighting with MI that time. So MI could sense that time that the rivalry was low. There were no other options or no other brands which MI was offering in the segment where the MI was playing. There were very few or lesser brands available. So in such scenario, the company has greater power to charge higher prices and set the terms of deals. So this no EMI was the term of deal, because they were getting 50 or 25 or 30,000 cash in hand. So for a company, it was a deal, because they never gave this option. Since we are offering it at a lesser price, you have to make the full payment. So when such things are there, when competition is less, when rivalry or company when has the greater power to because of the lesser competition, the company can set their own terms and conditions to achieve higher sales and profits. So this is how the competition in the industry plays a vital role. More competition, lesser power as industry. Less competition, more power you can exercise in the industry as a company. Clear? This is okay. Hmm. Moving further to the potential of new entrant into the industry. Potential of new entrant, how easily a new person can enter the industry. New person as in the new company or a new venture can enter the industry. So how much potential that particular industry has got, that is what we are now going to see. A company's power is also affected by force of new entrants into its market. How much power you can exercise as a company also depends on how easily people can enter this particular field. The less time and money it costs for a competitor to enter the market. hmm, Suppose you want to enter soap soap industry, you can easily enter the market within few years or within few months, we can say, and with lesser time also, with lesser money also, you can enter the market. And in a short span of time, you prove to be an effective competitor. You establish yourself within a short span of time. The more an established company's position could be significantly weakened. So if these things happen quickly with a lesser period of time, you can really weaken the companies, the established companies' position in the industry. Meaning, if the new entrants can easily enter the industry with lesser time and with lesser money, and if they can establish themselves quickly, then it's a dangerous situation for the established companies. Easily the people are coming. This is like opening the door, huh, without any locks. You have just closed the door. People can just see whether the door is open. Yes, it is open, and they can enter, they can steal the things, and they can go out as well. So this is like this. You have not put any locking system, you have not put any security outside your house. It is so easy for persons to enter your home. An industry with strong barriers to entry is ideal for existing companies. ऑयल कंपनीज या फिर इंफ्रा कंपनीज जो होते हैं, पावर मैन्युफैक्चरर्स या फिर such industries, entry is very much difficult because of kind of investment which is required, kind of resources which are required to start manufacturing. So such is an industry where the entry barriers are quite strong. This is ideal for existing companies, the ones who are already there in the business. For them, such scenario is good. That already, जैसे हमको, if we have to move out of India, there are lots of barriers. If I have to move to any XYZ country, let's say I have to immigrate over there, I have to permanently shift my base from this country, from India to that XYZ country, then there are lots of norms, there are lots of we can say barriers, there are lots of criterias which I have to cross. So that is why those we can say countries are preferred, because they are really trying and finding and only absorbing the good ones. That is why the craze of such countries is there in the minds of citizens. Similarly, this logic applies to the industry as well. Since the company would be able to charge higher prices and negotiate better terms. When the entry barrier, when the entry is very much restricted, or when entry is very much difficult, companies can charge higher prices. Such companies where entering the field is difficult, those companies are charging higher prices and they can negotiate better terms as well. The power companies or the infra companies, infra projects, that is why they rule the economy, because they have got money, and entering such fields is very difficult. A newcomer or a new person, it is not very easy to start something like power generation or power manufacturing or electricity generation or building such infra projects. Over a period of time, he may get successful, but then there are lots of entry barriers. So we are discussing an industry where if entry barriers are high, if the entry barriers are more, the industry is ideal for the existing companies. This particular industry with strong barriers to entry is ideal for existing companies. Those companies really enjoy, who are already there in the market and who face lesser entry barriers, or rather who face lesser entrants. Such companies, they enjoy better, and they can also charge higher prices and negotiate with better terms. So we have seen new entrants, potential of new entrants into an industry. Then the third force is power of suppliers. Suppliers who supply raw material or semi-finished or finished goods. So what power or what force these people execute? The next factor in five forces model addresses how easily suppliers can drive up the cost of inputs. It is affected by number of suppliers of key inputs of a goods or service, how unique these inputs are, and how much it would cost a company to switch to another supplier. The fewer the suppliers to an industry, the more company would be dependent on the suppliers. Now, supplier ke power, how we are going to calculate whether the supplier is powerful or not? How we are going to measure how unique their inputs are, what unique products these suppliers are supplying, how good their services are, how much it would cost a company to switch to another supplier. If the supplier is supplying me the unique products, if supplier is supplying me or giving me the services at, good services he is offering me, timely delivery and payment maybe issue nahi hai, so such suppliers are preferred. Guys, 1 minute. Yeah, sorry. So how much these suppliers are supplying me with the unique inputs, their power depends on these products. So if I have fewer suppliers to an industry, the more the company would be dependent on such suppliers. When the suppliers are fewer, when the suppliers are supplying me the unique inputs, then such suppliers are in demand. I, as a company, am very much dependent on such suppliers because of the nature of their goods they deal with. As a result, the supplier has more power and they can drive up input costs and push for the other advantages in trade. We are giving importance to these suppliers because of the kind of goods they deal with. So when such suppliers are in demand, when such suppliers are being preferred, they have more power. They become more powerful because they then understand that because of the kind of supplies I have, I am being preferred one. So they have more power. They can actually drive up the input cost. They can really drive up, as in they maybe because of them, my input cost may go up. For example, when I start manufacturing a particular raw material which I am purchasing from this supplier XYZ who is in demand, tomorrow when he says that because of such reasons I am going to increase the cost, I have no option but listen to him, and I have to be agree on whatever goods he is providing at whatever cost. I have to agree to that. So that is how they exert their power, and they also push for other advantages in trade. So they may increase the delivery time or whatever, जिसको हम in simple language we call it as tantrums. So whatever tantrums they throw, maybe the as a company we have to listen to them because of the greater power these suppliers are exerting. Opposite, on the other hand, when there are many suppliers or low switching costs between rival suppliers, a company can keep its input cost lower and enhances its profit. When I have number of suppliers, when the industry, as an industry, I can see that there are number of suppliers who are present or who are ready to supply, or there is a low switching cost involved when I move from supplier A to supplier B. Then it becomes easy for me to enhance the profit, because then the suppliers are unable to throw their tantrums. So this is how the power of supply. So basically these five forces tell us that if any of these five forces have the greater power, industry is going to affect, or you as a company, you are going to affect. If these forces are in your control, then you can rule as a company or in that particular industry. Then comes power of customers. Now, what power these customers, your customers, they exert? The ability that customers have to drive prices lower, or their level of power is one of the five forces. Even customers have got some role to play when we are analyzing the industry. It is affected by how many buyers or how many customers a company has, how significant each customer is, and how much it would cost a company to find new customers or markets for its output. So based on these four parameters, we can analyze a particular industry. How many buyers or customers a company has? Obviously, a smaller and more powerful client base means that each customer has more power. Whereas if I have got lots of customers, even if small changes are being made, since I am catering to a large base of customers, it is really not going to affect me anything as such. So small price increase, if I do maybe by 2 rupees or 5 rupees like that, it is really not going to affect the customers, because as it is, I have large customer base. But then what I earn, because I have large number of customers, goes into lakhs of rupees. How significant each customer is. If the customers are significant, if I have lesser customers to tackle, and when I have, or out of these lesser customers, each and every customer is important or significant, then they will have more power on me as a company. But when as a company, when I have large customers to take care of, and because they are large, I am not, I mean, each and every customer is not that significant to me because of larger customer base, then what happens? I have more power to exert on them than the customers exerting on me. How much it would cost a company to find new customers? If it is more, if it is more for a company to find new customers, then customers are important. And if customers are coming to me as a company, then I don't have to pay much for increasing the base of customers. Smaller and more powerful client base means that each customer has more power to negotiate for lower prices and better deals. I have, for example, I have um, let's say a spa or a salon with whom I have, I have good, like we share good terms and conditions. But then that particular salon deals with lesser number of customers. So they are very much, we can say, alert, or they are very much conscious towards providing the services. So when that salon as a service provider has got lesser client base, but then the clients are powerful in nature, customers can negotiate for better prices or for lower prices and for better deals as well. The company that has many smaller and independent customers who will have an easier time charging higher prices to increase the profitability. The company which has smaller and independent customers, many customers, it will have an easier time charging the high prices to increase the profitability. If I have many customers who are independent, when the base of customers is high, is large or more, then the company can charge higher prices to increase the profitability, because number of customers I'm targeting, for each and every customer, I'm not coming up with some exclusive offers, because I'm not targeting or tapping the smaller base of customers. When I have more customers, meaning I am lesser dependent on these customers than the customers are dependent on me. That is what it means. And the last factor is threat of substitutes. What threat the substitute products have on me as a company or belonging to a particular industry. The last of five forces, substitute goods or services that can be used in place of company's products or services, they pose a threat. If I can be easily substituted by somebody, it's a threat to me. Companies that produce goods or services for which there are no close substitutes will have more power to increase the prices and lock in favorable terms. Simple, the companies who are not easily substitutable, the company's products which are not easily substitutable, they will have more power to increase the prices. Fuel is a very good example. There is no substitute available. Now, though we have battery cars or though we have public transport available, if not opting for a private mode of transport, public transports are available, but then there is no substitute for fuel as such. So these companies or these players belonging to this particular company, particular industry, they have got more power to increase the prices. We never go and ask maybe Bharat Petroleum or another company that why you have increased the prices. Within 3 years, the prices have gone to 60 or the industry has seen 60% or 70% rise, which in any single industry doesn't happen this way. We are not going as a customers and asking such questions to these companies. Simply we'll get an answer: if you cannot afford, just stop using the two-wheelers or four-wheelers, whatever. So that is the case. When companies' products are not easily substitutable, such companies will have more power to increase the prices and they lock in the favorable terms. When close substitutes are available, customers will have the option to forego buying the company's products, and company's power can also be weakened easily. Now, if for example, let's say the bread, the such is the commodity, such is the product that this can be easily substituted by another company. If not XYZ, the ABC is readily available. Moreover, there is no much difference in terms of prices, appearance, taste, everything remains the same. Very close substitutes are available. Then we as a customer have got option to forego buying the company's products. And company's powers can also be weakened. We'll simply decide that this particular company's bread is not good. Through word of mouth, we spread that please don't go for so and so bread. Uh, it is not good. Taste wise also it's not good. Moreover, its expiry is within 2 or 3 days. Moreover, ABC gives me 5 days expiry, so it's better to go for ABC than XYZ. Such is the product which is easily substitutable. So this is how we are understanding the forces which affect the industry. So when you are trying to jump in a particular industry, we need to check what I am offering. Can it be easily substituted? Whatever I am going to offer, how is the level of suppliers of such products to the industry? If it is more, if there are more suppliers, then I will not have any say because I will be amongst one of them. So I will not be an exclusive one. So if there are more suppliers, I have to dance on the tune of company. If there are lesser suppliers, if they are maintaining some kind of exclusivity or something, then as a supplier, I can make the companies dance on my tunes. So this is how roughly we analyze the forces which are present in the industry, and accordingly we strategize for the longer period of time. Then comes identifying the right business model canvas. So business model canvas is something which now we are going to see. Now we have this question in our mind that I've got a new idea, but I don't know how to put it to work. I have this idea of, uh, let's say, starting my own pest control business. I know the technology. I know what the chemicals are being used for it, how to tackle and how to take care, how to maintain. I maybe I worked in a chemical company who was dealing with manufacturing the pest control chemicals. So I know how what chemicals are being used. but I don't know how to put it to work. I don't know how to convert this idea into reality. Maybe another thing is I want to improve my existing business model. Maybe I am currently working as interior designer. I'm taking orders. I'm taking smaller orders. Now I want to grow. I want to have bigger projects. I am thinking of collaborating with any famous builder, and I want to, do the interior of his projects, whatever projects are which are being run by him. So I want to improve my existing business model. I don't know how to do it. Same thing earlier also. I know the products which are being used in pest control business, but I don't know how to take that idea further. I Somebody suggested me that you should first write a business plan. The business plan will give you correct direction. So I sat and I wrote, but then I stuck at few points. I just stopped there. Again, after few months, again I thought of writing or completing the business plan. I sat and I wrote few of the points, but then again got stuck at something. So this business plan itself is not giving me the exact answer. So now what to do in such situations? So the answer is this business model canvas. This is roughly how the business model canvas looks. See, we are not supposed to learn this business model canvas in detail. We are just uh, being introduced to this concept. Can you see this diagram? See, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Yes.
9, yeah, there are 9 columns or 9, we can say the segments where we need to uh, put some information. Hmm. What it is, we'll first see how it is, and then we'll come back to this diagram again. So what is this business model canvas? This plan, it's a plan basically describing how a business intends to make money. Now, business plan may there is a difference between business plan and business model canvas. Business plan may we are writing each and every point in detail. Whereas here, what we are doing, it explains who your customer base is, how you deliver value to them, the related details of financing. It lets you define these different components on a single page. So basically, this first and important difference is this single page. We have seen that business plan may be this business plan may take anything between 5 to 100 pages. We are not sure how detail you make, how in detail you make, or what all segments you include. There is no limit. There is no limit of putting the information. What we have seen is the executive summary, which is actually the, we can say, the prototype of your business plan should be between 2.5 pages. It should be limited to 2.5 pages, which will actually give you a gist of what you are going to do. But then this is a superior method where you are writing down everything on a single page. So just by quickly glancing through that single page, you can have a clear cut idea about your plans, about your models. So what this plan contains, this business model canvas contains, it contains who your customer base is, how you deliver value to them, and the related details of financing. It's a strategic management tool that lets us visualize and assess the business idea or concept. As I said, it's a strategic management tool helping us visualize and assess how the concept or how my business idea is. So when I have to visualize something, I cannot simply do it by going through 5 pages. Till the time I reach or till the time I jump onto the fifth page, what I wrote on the first page, I myself may forget. But then this doesn't happen in case of business model canvas because it's a single page document. It's a 1 page document containing 9 boxes that represent different fundamental elements of a business. So we are dividing the one page into 9 boxes. All these 9 boxes, they represent different fundamental elements of a business. So these 9 boxes are putting stress on the different elements related to the business. So what these elements are, we'll see. When filling out a business model canvas, you will brainstorm and conduct research on each of these elements. The data you collect can be placed in each relevant section of the canvas. So basically, how we write business plan, similarly, we are going to write business model canvas. Only difference is it gives me a quick overview of it, because all the information I have to uh, write down in those 9 provided boxes. Those 9 boxes remain more or less same for each and every industry. The right side of the canvas focuses on customers or the market. Right side is this. Can you see this right side? Can you see my pointer? See, I'm talking about customer relations, customer segment, and distribution channels. Can you see this? Is the diagram visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So this right side of the plan focuses on these customers. Now, customer segment may, the question, wait a minute. Is it better now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So customer segments, for whom are we creating the value? Who are the most important customers? So this customer segment types could be mass market or niche market or segmented, diversified, multi-sided platform. So basically we are studying the segment of the customer, meaning are we marketing for all? Are we coming up with the product which can be used by all, or does it belong to a niche segment, a separate segment of the market? Have we segmented it? Have we diversified, or the multi-sided platform? So basically there is a room for which segment we are going to cater. Then it is also talking about the distribution channels, through which distribution channel you are going to reach your customers. Like, will you be having your own channel? Will you be having your own logistics or supply chain who will deliver the goods? Or are you going to outsource, or are you going to be in partnership with the channels? जैसे कि for example, these the online uh, partners or these online websites, sometimes it happens that they are not like Amazon or Flipkart, who can have their own channel to reach to the customers. Some vendors or some suppliers are lesser in terms of their operations, so they cannot afford their own channels. So they either go for outsourcing, or they can go for partnering, being having some tie-up with the customers, with the service providers. Then comes relationships, customer relationship. What type of relationship do our customers expect us to establish and maintain with them? So are we going for some personal assistance, or through CRM we can say, are we going to establish one-on-one relationship, or do we have dedicated personal assistants who will take care of the customers? जैसे कि in case of banks and financial institutions, there are relationship managers, there are RMs. Now RMs may, these RMs, uh, some of them take care of walk-in customers, those who come and visit the branch, they deal with them. Then there are some RMs who only look after the retail customers like you and me. We are not visiting the bank, but by calling us or through emails or by sending SMSs, they are in touch of us. Then there are some relationship managers who only deal with high net worth individuals, HNI clients. So they only serve these HNI clients. So this is like dedicated personal assistance. Self-service, you enter your own email, this user ID and password, you visit our website, and you only do the money transfer by putting the IFSC code or with the help of NEFT. So it is like self-service. So I'm making my website a self-service platform where bank is not at all intervening. Bank is not asking you how much cash you want to deposit, how you have to transfer the money. So no assistance at all. Automated services, if you visit the ATM or let's say the branch of a particular bank, then there are machines where you can deposit the cash as well, and you can remove the cash too. Maybe some smaller things like even check can be deposited. So such services are also being provided, automated services. Communities and co-creation. Communities, let's say a bank forms a group of customers, जैसे हमने बोला HNI clients or HNI customers. So these communities के लिए there is some assistance which is provided. So the point is, wait a minute. So the point is, this is how you are going to define the customer, or who you are going to tap, or the market which you the customer whom you are going to serve. This is how you put the information regarding on that particular single page. So we have seen the right side, which is talking about the customer or whom you are going to serve, that is the market. The external factors which are not under your control. The left side of the canvas focuses on the business, what you are. So I'm actually defining who am I in terms of business. So this becomes your internal factor that are mostly under your control. So what comes in the left hand side, we'll see now. Left hand side is this. We are talking about these three factors. So in these three factors, we are now talking about the key partners, key activities, and key resources. One second. So key partners, the activities and the resources. So when I say that key partners, I'm talking about the the partners with whom I'm doing my business, if I have, then my suppliers. Then I'm also talking about the resources which I am acquiring from them. The resources I'm acquiring from my partners or from my suppliers. So this partnership could be a strategic alliance, or let's say it could be a joint venture or buyer supplier relationship. So basically these are my internal factors. These are related to my business. That is why they are internal factors. Key activities like production, problem solving, network. These activities, by activities are talking about the distribution channel, the relationship, the revenue. How am I going to generate? How am I going to do with the revenue generation? What am I going to do with that? Key resources, like I'm talking about what human resources I have. How am I going to source them? How am I going to recruit them, train them? Then what physical resources or intellectual resources or financial resources I require. We have seen them in our business plan as well. Yeah. Then we are talking about, in the middle, there is a value proposition that represents the exchange of value between your business and your customer. So we are talking about this value proposition, this part which is in the center. So what values we deliver to the customer? So our mission statement, vision statement, objectives, plans are being written or are being uh, mentioned in this middle paragraph or in the middle section. Which one of our customers' problems are we trying to solve? So which sort of customer issues we are going to solve? That also I write here. What products and services are we offering to our customer segments? Which customer needs are satisfying? So I am basically trying to describe my business from value or offering point of view. So why am I into this business? How am I going to tackle the issues? So customer is being taken care of, the suppliers or partners are being taken care of in the left hand side. Middle may I have written about the value proposition. If you look at the downside, there is a cost structure and revenue streams. So this part talks about or takes care of the finance or the financial. This part explains the financial angle of the business. When I say cost structure, what are the most important costs inherent in our business model? Which key resources and activities are most expensive? It's our business. Is our business more cost driven or value driven? So basically, I'm explaining the structure here, and I'm explaining in this corner the revenue stream. How am I generating money? Through licensing, through advertising, how am I dealing with the money? So this is how this business model canvas, this is how it is being built. A better version of business plan, we can say, because it happens that business plan runs into pages, whereas this business model canvas can be written on a single page only. Then comes 7 domains of John Mullins. I'll just introduce this particular tool, and then we'll stop for today's session. Um, if at any point you are working on a new activity, stuck in some situations, or thinking of looking at your business, you need to work it out thoroughly and examine it from number of different perspectives. Now, these are some of the situations. One second. Any point we are working on new activity, let's say we are in the process of launching the product, maybe we are in the process of introducing some of the products, maybe we are coming up with some better offers, we are dealing with expanding our business into overseas market. So we are, such are the new activities, and we are working on such activities. So maybe such is the scenario. Maybe second thing could be we are stuck in some situations and thinking of re-looking at our business. We are stuck in the situations. There is a new project which is whose proposal we have submitted to the bank, and we have asked for loan against this particular new project. But due to some reasons, this proposal is stuck at the bank's end. Somehow the bank is not processing my loan application. I have submitted all the documents. I have given all the necessary information from my side, but still nothing is happening further. Or sometimes it may happen that I'm re-looking at your business. I'm thinking of re-looking at my business. Maybe I'm thinking of changing the office. Maybe I'm thinking of maybe revamping of my products or my offering. So some kind of change I'm looking at. I'm looking at my business, but I need to work it out thoroughly. I feel that I should not go wrong in any of these situations. So for this, what do I have to do? I need to examine it from the different perspective. When I say that I'm going to launch a new product in the market, now I need to take this decision very carefully, taking into consideration the different perspective. I need to think about its pricing. 4 P's I definitely have to think about: product, price, place, promotion. I need to see to it how it is distributed, how it is being advertised, how the pre-publicity is to be done. In case of any issues, maybe related to the product, how they can be tackled or targeted. So I have to look at this particular event from different perspective. So this particular tool given by John Mullen helps me out when I have these 3 to 4 different situations related to my business. So this tool, John Mullen's 7 domains, help you analyze the impact of 7 major factors on the activity you are planning to evaluate or venture you are planning to start. So these 7 domain evaluation can help me out when a particular venture I'm going to start, maybe at that time, or maybe I'm planning to launch an activity, and that time when I have to evaluate my planning, I can do it with the help of 7 domains of John's Mullin, with this help of tool given by John Mullins. What this tool is, it is very much simple. We are just analyzing the scenario, taking into consideration some micro level and macro level factors. How it is, we'll cover it in our next class. We are stopping our session here today. We'll see you tomorrow. If you have any doubts, let me know. Meantime, take care and have a great day. Enjoy your day at home. Be safe. All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.